Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I'm going to continue my video series about Israel. And for this video, I just want to highlight some key points and I want to explain why the whole situation over there matters to each and every one of us. I want to talk about why I'm concerned about what's going on there and why you should be concerned about what's happening in Israel and Palestine. First of all, since my last video, far more people have died. From what I recall, I think 1,200 Palestinians have been killed by Israel. And many of them, the overwhelming majority of the dead and injured, are innocent civilians. Innocent civilians. Many of them include children, harmless children who are innocent, who have done no wrong. Their only crime is being Palestinian. Their only crime is living in the Gaza Strip. That's their crime. And they're being punished collectively by the state of Israel. In my last video, I said that Israel is a terrorist state. And, I stand by that statement. When I look at the violence that's happening over there, I can't reach any other conclusion. Israel is bombing schools. Israel is bombing shelters. Israel is bombing mosques. Israel even bombed a power plant. So the people in Gaza are without power, and they need power in order to deal with, in order to take care of the water that they use on a daily basis. And it's important to understand that, electricity is already, they already have problems with electricity in Gaza. People are deprived with a constant stream of electricity. And, these types of attacks make it clear that this is not just some war on Hamas. This is a war against the Palestinian people as a collective. It is nothing but collective punishment. It is nothing but terrorism. When you bomb open air markets, that can't be considered a legitimate military action. They are killing innocent people over there. And they are using American weapons to do so. They are using American dollars to fund their crimes against humanity. They bombed a UN shelter. Will anybody speak up against this injustice? I hear some people say that this is not our issue. We shouldn't be concerned about what happens over there. It's important to realize people said the same thing to Martin Luther King when he spoke out against the Vietnam War. They said, don't worry about the issues over there. Just focus on so-called civil rights. But King said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we need to understand that. What happens over there is directly tied to what happens over here. It's directly linked. When we wonder why our schools are not being funded, when we wonder why certain action is not being taken care of, when we wonder why we don't have funds to feed the hungry, when we wonder why we don't have funds to find the cures to diseases, when we wonder why there's not housing for the homeless, we have to look at how America spends its money. Billions upon billions of dollars are poured into Israel's war machine. Billions of American dollars are used to bomb children and innocent people. So there's a direct correlation between our needs and what happens abroad. Funds that could be used to build the schools in inner cities are being used to fund terrorism abroad. Funds that could be used to feed the hungry in this country are being sent to Israel. They always have enough money for war, but they never have enough money to feed and clothe the hungry and the naked. Never. Those Republicans and even some so-called Democrats want to cut back on social benefits to the poor. But they never talk about cutting back funding for Israel's war machine. As a human being with sensitivities, we should be concerned about the loss of any innocent life. We should be concerned about the plight of all human beings. Some of us have a narrow perspective on things, a very narrow, myopic view of reality. We're only concerned about our little tiny corner in the world, and we're not concerned about the larger situations that impact our lives. See, America needs to deal with this problem in the Middle East. See, they need to understand that this violence will continue as long as the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank continues. It will continue. You can't hold people in an open air prison and not expect them to be hostile. You can't cut off their links to the outside world, blockade them, deprive them of the basic things that all human beings need, and expect them to maintain a peaceful disposition. You can't kill people's mothers, fathers, and children and expect them not to be hostile. You can't do it. You simply can't do it. And many of our strong, courageous leaders spoke out against this injustice that goes on in Israel. They spoke out against the occupation of Palestine. You know, people like Kwame Ture, a strong Pan-Africanist leader. He taught us about the truth of Zionism. He taught us about the reality of Zionism. You know, many of us get it twisted. We think that there's no distinction between Zionism and Judaism. There's a clear distinction. Zionism is a political movement that pimps religion to cover up its evil and its wickedness. One of the main founders of the whole Zionist movement, Theodor Herzl, was an atheist. So this is not even about religion. Those people would have taken any piece of land that they could get. They even considered taking land in Africa to establish their state of Israel. So this is not about some ancient tales from the Bible. This is a political movement that exploits religion and uses religion to cover up their wickedness, to cover it up. No just God can condone what these people are doing. These people are engaging in acts of wickedness. Acts of wickedness, bombing shelters. That's indefensible. Bombing mosques. That's indefensible. Bombing open air markets is indefensible. And it has to be condemned by all people with a conscience. By all of us. See, we understand, we see these things in the world. You know, people that don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, they wonder why certain populations have some hostility toward the U.S. They wonder why. They don't understand that the U.S. is funding Israeli terrorism against the Palestinian people. Imagine your daughter or your son being blown apart, being shot while at a school by Israel. Here you are seeking shelter, and they bomb that shelter with tank fire. How would you feel if you lost your children, if you lost your mother and father? You would be outraged. And I just find it, disheartening that more people aren't speaking out, that more people are not condemning what's happening over there. You have all these news outlets that present a one-sided view of things. They promote Zionist propaganda. It's like these Zionists have become like the new Nazis. Like Goebbels promoted propaganda to justify the genocide against the Palestinian people, against the Jewish people. The Zionists are doing the same thing today. They're using propaganda to justify killing innocent people. They're coming up with all kinds of excuses for what's happening. First, when one of these bombings happens, they claim that it's the Palestinians' bombs that somehow got misguided and ended up hitting Palestinians. When that doesn't work, they claim that Palestinians were firing weapons from schools and mosques and from other places. They use these kind of justifications. Then they say that the Palestinians are deliberately using the people as human shields. And they talk about how Palestinians don't value life and how they use their own people as shields. All that is a simple attempt to justify Israel's brutality. And sadly, so many American people have bought into the lie. They have accepted the Zionist propaganda as the gospel truth. They have done so because the media constantly programs them to do so. They have a constant stream of outright Israeli propaganda. They have, like, for instance, on CNN, they have Netanyahu's spokesman on there every other couple of minutes telling the Israeli viewpoint. And then for a couple of seconds, they may have a moderate Palestinian voice here and there. But for the most part, the overwhelming message that people receive is a pro-Israel message. And that's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. But it's understandable when you understand who owns the media. See, with the media, they shape our consciousness. They mold our opinions. And basically, it's like a form of mind control. And that's basically what you have here. And that's why you don't have people speaking out against this injustice. That's why you don't have it happening. Today I was leaving the train station, and I saw a group of young people and older people marching for Palestine, marching in support of the people of Gaza. And I immediately pulled over my car, and I got out of my car, and I joined them. I joined them, and I was proud to do so. And I encourage each one of you to educate yourself about this situation. Because what is happening there is unjust. It's a basic violation of human rights. And anyone that has a conscience needs to condemn what's happening over there. They need to condemn it. I mean, here you have a little country, Israel, that receives more money from the United States than all of sub-Saharan Africa. That makes no sense. So that's another connection. I mean, on our mother continent of Africa, there's suffering there. You know, in some places there's famine. But instead of feeding those people, we are feeding the war machine in Israel. We are feeding it. And, you know, another example of the connection between what's happening over there and what's happening here is the horrific attacks on 9/11. You know, that brought home the idea that what happens abroad is not confined to some distant foreign lands anymore. What happens over there has a direct impact on our lives. I condemn all forms of terrorism, whether it's committed by Israel or it's committed by Palestinians or Arabs or Muslims or Christians or Jews. I condemn it all. And if we are to be consistent, if we are to be principled, we must do so. We must condemn all forms of terrorism.